Welcome to State of the Sky, a podcast dedicated to Skyweaver news, metagame, community events, and all things Skyweaver. My name is Geenareeno, and joining me today is my friend and fellow Skyweaver player, JustAddBacon. What's up, Bacon?
Howdy.
How are you doing today?
I am doing pretty dang well. How are you doing, geenareeno?
I'm doing good. I'm excited that we got this project underway. There's been a void I wanted to fill in the Skyweaver community for a podcast content and just a way for people to discuss things beyond text in the Discord, so thought this would be a good idea.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm very excited for what all we've got going on.
Yeah, that's true. We've got a lot to talk about in this first episode, so let's get to it. We're going to start with the news, and of course, if you've been keeping up with the news in the Skyweaver world at all, you know that the big thing happening lately is the soft launch announcement. So we're going from the final testing phase to soft launch, which is the last stage before the game will be officially released. And the main detail of soft launch is that we're going from the test net to the main net. So all the assets, the silver cards, the gold cards, will be real and they'll be permanent. Because right now we're at the end of Season 0, and there's going to be a reset where all cards will be wiped and everyone will have to start over. So, how do you feel about that? Are you excited for soft launch?
I am so freaking excited, man. You have no idea. First off, having all of the cards reset is going to be a great way to kind of force everybody to experiment. So I'm very interested in what the meta is going to be and all of that after we've been forced to reevaluate all of these cards. But also having this real climb up the ladder again. I'm very competitive. I am so excited for the challenge.
That's true. I forgot that the ladder would reset. It's been the way it has been for such a long time, but it's going to be completely erased and everyone's going to start from new.
All those stinky dog accounts just going to get wiped.
Yeah, Good Dog's going to have to come back and make 8 Smurfs and get back to the top.
More like 20. The man had too much free time.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I guess we can talk a bit about our history with the game. I believe we both started around March or April of 2020, so we've both been playing for about a year and a half. Is that correct?
Yep. I was sometime right whenever the pandemic kicked up, and I was looking for a new card game. And I got a targeted ad on Instagram, which was really funny because I never use Instagram, but I just happened to get an ad. And I'm like, oh yeah, this looks cool. I'm like, oh hey, it has nice art. I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll try this. And well, I've been hooked.
Yeah, me too. Those first few months of playing it were an amazing time. I had just never found a card game like this one, and it was just so fun to unlock all the cards, see the different units, and all that.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Skyweaver, as far as I can tell, might have kind of ruined other card games for me, because I can already tell, looking back, that wow, having 4 copies of a card in a deck, I just really don't vibe with anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I've taken to the singleton format really well, and I think it adds a lot of depth and skill, and it's just kind of a better way of doing things in some ways.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, before I played a bit of Hearthstone, and I didn't really like it. I still played it, and then I played a bit of Eternal, and that's quite a bit like Magic the Gathering. I know you played that as well, didn't you?
Oh yeah, dude, I was big in Eternal. I didn't know that you played though.
Yeah, I think we probably have played against each other on ladder 1 or 2 times, because I played it a decent amount too, but
I don't know, man. I was up in Masters in Eternal. I was pretty up there. I don't know if you would have ran into me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if it was late at night and there wasn't enough people in queue, we could have crossed paths. I was
No,
gold or something, but anyways, that's a different game. We're playing the best card game there is, Skyweaver.
Oh hell yeah!
So it's been a journey to get here to soft launch. We thought it was going to happen last year, and then they had to work on the wallet issues and lots of bug fixes, but we're finally here, and the game has changed a lot since we started. Changed so much, actually. Almost every card has been changed. Many have been removed or added, but things are pretty much finalized as we're going into soft launch. What do you think about how things have changed over the time that we've played?
The meta has gotten a lot less wacky at times. For those of y'all listening to this in the future, just know the closed beta meta for Skyweaver was absolutely insane. I remember when I first joined, there were like Zam combos where it didn't have like a two claws on it, so you could play like three of them and they would all trigger. And so there were like 90 damage Zam combos. Avatar of
Hmm.
Light would like heal for three, so you could just do that. There was a time that Fox Familiar had Stealth, Hot Dog, and Run Wild had Banner, and like Speedster would just activate as soon as you dropped your mana to zero. There was a time that Deadbeats Rave was like an 18 damage combo or something. This game has had a wacky history, but going from all of that to like how things are now, I am so excited. I'm very happy with the way the meta will be whenever we launch.
Yeah, I feel like when we started, it was much more of the extremes. Like you could build like hyper aggro or like hyper control healing out of deck. Let's not forget about the control summer of 2020, where everyone was playing Axel and going to 30 mana and healing for a million with mummies that didn't dust themselves and Grave Royal and all this other nonsense.
See, I feel partially responsible for that because I went on to one of Miss Rex streams. For those of y'all who don't know, she's a community streamer, rather popular, pretty darn good. She kicked my ass a lot when I started, but I just started playing like this disgusting Axel deck, and I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of people started getting the idea from. Because it was like Jikinsu was a sunset effect. Libra didn't have the clause where you had to be below them in health. So
Yeah,
you would just loop those cards. It was disgusting.
and also Gift of Eye healed based on the number of cards
Oh
you had in your hand
no!
instead of just
No.
five.
Yes, a 5 mana heal, 8, and banner, and ramp, and draw.
Yeah, and
Very
draw.
fair.
Hmm. But now things are a lot more balanced. Healing has been toned down. Aggro has been nerfed significantly since the earlier days, based on stats, and it's still you can still play aggro, but it's not quite the same. It's no longer rolling face going 21-3 with a deck on ladder.
Unfortunate. Also true.
Hmm. I was really skeptical when aggro started getting nerfed, but I think it's worked out for the best, and you can still see people succeeding and dominating with aggro decks on a ladder. So I guess it's all right.
I think it worked out in the end because with the nerfs to all the staples like Hot Dog and Run Wild, we got more diversity of options. Like now we have Shoal Sprite and Blood Hunter and Trailblazer, and
Yeah.
even in Int, you've got options like Orion or Gemini. Hax has been toned down, but Uno strategies can still be pretty effective. Like
That
we've added more diversity by culling the power level a bit.
for sure. That was one of the biggest things that I think shifted the meta. You mentioned Uno, and my Unophobia was like one of the staple decks for a long, long time. And
Ah,
Alpha had like a million different versions, and you would just grind 100 Smurfs and get insane win rates and records with them. But
yeah.
eventually, Coulter said, "Enough of this. You're no longer going to be able to put 20 cards that go +1 in your deck and then rip a 20 damage Unophobia."
Yeah, I think it was partially also I was just constantly bitching and moaning about that because at the time there was like Supersonic, which never got a change, and suddenly kind of just sucks as a card, which is odd. But like you had Cookbook, you had a 2 cost Lao Sensei, you had a 1 cost Huntaro, and Teleport was a 1 mana spell that would draw a 2 cost unit from your deck and then attach Daze to it. So Alpha basically he had like this amazing kind of circuit setup where like you could cookbook into teleport and then teleport into Lao Sensei and then Lao Sensei into Supersonic, which Supersonic might be finding your cookbook in the teleport. Supersonic could find Huntaro into Lao Sensei, and it was just all these cards that would chain into each other while generating value and deck thinning.
Yeah, that's true. It was pretty wild.
It was wacky.
But that's been stopped, and I mean you can still play Unophobia. We saw the Banjo aggro with it, but
Do not
I haven't
speak of
seen it
that
as
deck.
much.
Do not
Okay,
speak of it.
we're not going to talk about Banjo aggro today. We don't want to encourage anyone to play it, but and yeah,
For
the other thing I want to say about the meta and its development coming into soft launch is that strength has gotten a lot of buffs in recent months, and kind of mid range in general has been kind of pushed as something that we can do more and is being given stronger options lately.
Yeah, mid range is honestly what I'm here for. Like I always like make the jokes about aggro rights kind of just because like Smork Go Face is a funny meme. But for those of you who like have experience with like Hearthstone or Eternal, like in Eternal, I was always like a Praxis player. I played like Fire and Time, which are like these big statted mid range units, like a 4 mana 5/6. Or in like Hearthstone, I was always really big on like Paladin and Rogue. Like I want to like control the board and I want to be able to aggress people down while applying pressure. So I am very happy with these changes, especially lately the cards like Cavalry and Mighty Steed.
Right. Yeah. I've always been an aggro player in this game. I mean, I played Warrior in Hearthstone, which I liked, but I guess I'm
No.
I guess in this game I've mostly played Zoe and made like aggro Zoe decks that run like a lot of death units with Grave Royal. But things are changing, and that deck I made does not work anymore. I tried it, and it does not work anymore.
I feel like there's still room for Zoe based kind of. I would honestly put your deck more into like a mid range strategy, but I feel like
Yeah.
there's got to be like you play like Tridra, you play Buckler up, and then you just like loop Fun Guy or whatever. Like you just hold board. I have a deck
Hmm.
that kind of does those things. I feel like that's still pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely workable.
Although I was also running Undragon in it, so I'm not sure you can really call it control or aggro. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, it starts to go into different territory at that point. But yeah, so
yeah.
we've got a different game than when we started playing, and we're getting ready for soft launch. Of course, everyone's trying to get top 500 right now to claim those gold cards. Each account within the top 500 of both ladders, Constructed and Discovery, will receive one gold card. So each account can earn up to 2 gold cards if you are top 500 on both ladders with that account. Um, Personally, used to be top 500 in Discovery. I was like in the 200s because it was much easier to get up there back then. And I started playing again, and I plummeted down to like 1,000 because the skill level and the level of the players playing has just drastically increased since more people started playing in the final testing phase. I'm hanging in there in Constructed. I'm still top 500, but Discovery I've dropped out. How are you doing with your accounts?
So I have this funny habit where I'll just randomly play like a fox deck or whatever, absent-mindedly, and then I'll just work my way up to like, well, currently I'm at third, but like 20,056 elo. That kind of just happened over a brain dead weekend. Or like my alts will be like, okay, I'm going to actively try and grind. I'm going to actively try and make my rank good, and then the best I can do is like the low 1900s. Or I'll get on like my main account where I have freaking 2,500 games. I'm like, yes, today I will explore all the decks that Mekarai can be in Fox, and I will determine why it is bad, and I'll just tank my rank. So if any account is not going to be in there, it will be the one that everyone will see. But the rest of my accounts, I have like 7 accounts total, I think. Those are all going to be good, so I'm going to be rolling in the dough.
Nice. Yeah, I've been a one account Andy the whole time. I have one Smurf, which I played very few games on, but most of my games are played on my main. And you definitely tank your ELO when you're trying to test stuff and learn stuff. But it's I like to run with it, just having one account.
Yeah, I need to get all of those like golden star fields, so that way whenever people discover it's busted, I can just hawk them for $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. What about Discovery? You're not as much of a Discovery player, are you?
For the sake of my mental health, I do not play Discovery. I am. I put my comments in the Discord with like niceness and sincerity, and I never want to be rude to any players. But I cannot stand Discovery. Like, I want
Really?
to play this game competitively. I want to go into it. I want to demonstrate I'm the better player. I know the cards better. I am better at controlling board than you. I know how to play this game. I am just that good. And whenever I go into Discovery and I'm like, I'm going to play Fox because I like Fox, and then it's like, okay, your hand is Queen of Jacks, Vlad, Maelstrom, and Hurricane. And it's like, huh, well, okay, they just played a turn one Mushka. Okay, and now that's Earthrune. Okay, that's a 7/7. Yeah, I don't think I'm winning this one. I could not stand that. I could not do that
Hmm.
at all. I would get too irritated. Now,
It does
granted, I
happen.
still get irritated playing constructed, but at least I can kind of blame it on myself, where it's like, oh, well, dumbass, you should have ran this removal. And it's like, oh, yeah, I should have. And at least, like, I can direct that towards getting better at the game.
Yeah, having agency over your deck building and stuff. I think it's cool. I like the game mode. I played it a lot when I first started playing. I think it's great for new players. I find it interesting how you kind of have to work with what you get, and there's definitely a lot of skill expression, as we've learned recently with people putting up like 90+% win rates, which I find absurd that it's possible.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely, like, a very competitive game mode. Like, there's lots of skill expression. I would just rather. I feel like constructed has more skill expression, which is kind of self-serving because I'm like constructed, yay, discovery, boo. But I mean, in constructed, you have the deck that you chose. It minimizes RNG
Hmm. Yeah, well, we'll have to get it.
mostly.
We'll have to get a discovery expert on the podcast one day to debate you because I don't think I'm up for that task.
Kiru debates me like every day in the Discord, and I don't like it because he has good arguments. So if we could avoid challenging my views, that would be preferable.
I don't know if maybe I regret giving you a platform to air out all your discovery feelings.
Nah, I already have that platform.
Well, Kiru's a pretty smart guy. He's kind of more recent to the community. I'm glad to be seeing him around in the Discord. He provides a lot of insight and top tier information.
Provides a very good perspective I don't have. And he's a Foxfang member. Just wanna casually mention that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, moving on. Speaking of Discovery, everyone's going to be playing Discovery when the soft launch comes because everyone's cards are getting reset. And well, I mean, you can make a deck with no cards and play Discovery and Constructed, but that's probably ill-advised. So I think most people are going to be focusing on Discovery as soft launch happens in order to unlock those cards so they can start playing Constructed.
Yeah, they can do that. I will not. I would rather enter constructed with a shitty deck.
I mean, you'll have to play a few rounds to get some cards, right?
No, I will simply win and get cards. That's the game plan. It's gonna happen.
I guess if you get enough golden cards from the raffle, well, no, I guess those give conquest entries. That's another thing we could talk about is every gold card you have at the end of season 0 will enter you into a raffle to earn a conquest ticket upon soft launch happening. And these tickets, they let you enter conquest. For those of you who aren't familiar, conquest is the game mode where you can earn gold cards and silver cards. So you queue up against someone, and if you get 3 wins in a row, you earn a gold card. 2 wins gets you 2 silver cards. 1 win gets you 1 silver card, and 0 wins gets you nothing, I believe. And so the way it works is that a silver card can be cashed in to start another conquest run. So if you get at least 1 win, you can infinitely do conquest runs without spending money. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy a conquest ticket with real money or convert it into crypto. They'll be about $1, I believe. But it's going to be interesting. This game is going to attract a lot of crypto people, card game players alike, trying to get those gold cards, and it's going to be exciting to see how much they're worth because, I mean, if you can make some money by winning some conquest runs, that's pretty cool. And I'm interested to see the value of the Doom Shrooms and the Starfields that we get as well.
Oh yeah, because think about how many accounts there are in top 500 that are probably like either A, going to all be one player who's then going to like monopolize that part of the supply, or B, are just going to be accounts of people who never show back up. Like supply for that is going to be very small.
That's true. That's true. Really makes me regret playing Discovery on my account and dropping into the top 500. I'm not looking forward to learning how much money I lost by making that decision, but live and learn, I guess.
Uh, as far as I care, I'm just going to be using money made from this game to fill out my collection.
Hmm.
If I get any extra from that, I'll save it for expansions.
So the next thing we have on our news segment is the player Xiaoyu has achieved #1 on both ladders, which is something that I think has been done before, but not for a very long time, and we haven't seen someone demonstrate proficiency in both game modes the way he has, yeah, in a long time. So it's pretty wild that he managed to do that. Just an incredible player in every way. Xiaoyu's from China. I think he's about 34 or 35. He streams pretty often. He makes decks. He talks in the Discord, so active community member. So congrats to him. Really, really an insane achievement. What do you think about this, Bacon?
Uh, so what do I personally think about his achievement, or how salty am I that I've been knocked down to third?
Both.
For the second one. For the first one, I am incredibly happy to see somebody like do so well, and also to see somebody pushing the meta. Because Zayu, to actually like secure first in constructed, I mean obviously Discovery, he was I think he was playing Lotus, I'm not sure. But for constructed at least, he was playing this really cool like Zoe deck that I only faced off against a few times, and it was whenever I was like testing out developing like Gator loops. But it was just this really value dense deck that's like I'm going to play Viper Charmer and Wall of Dead and Flock and all of these other like just token generators basically. And it was this really smart setup because you knew he had Bloodhunter. He was running Trailblazer with just Bloodhunter and Uppercut. So if Trailblazer went off, he always had Bloodhunter and Uppercut sitting in his hand for the rest of the game. And it was just really smart and well put together. So to see him like get results with such a cool build like that, I am happy to see. Also, fun fact, he's in Foxfang.
Okay, well.
Just gonna mention that every time it comes up.
Didn't have to bring that up, but anyways, yeah, Xiaoyu, incredible player, regardless of what team he's part of. But yeah, so in constructed, he's at 2062 yellow, one above the second place. The mysterious Heniak Lankuk, who has never sent a message in Discord. No one knows who he is or how he got there.
I'm almost convinced it's like a very well-made bot. I can't confirm it. It's a tinfoil hat conspiracy that is very likely to be wrong. But also,
some people think he might have done win trading to get there, but there's no way of knowing whether that's true or not.
There's something happened. I don't want to accuse somebody of cheating, but like something happened.
We never saw his deck list either. I heard some talk that it was a Horic deck with like a lot of units, but
it was a Horic deck with 26 units. And not just that, but looking over the deck, I remember it had like Bloodhunter with 3 fire cards. It had like what did it have? It had Glorious Mane, but like no elemental synergy. Mm-hmm. It kinda I don't know. I'm thinking maybe it just got carried on like Avatar and White Knight just being really good early cards that he could buff with like Fire Sword, but I've got no clue. I would like to hear from the person, just like hear like what did they do? Because like they're active in Discovery, like they play Discovery literally every day, so like it has to be somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Tinfoil hats.
The mysterious Heniak Lankuk. And then in Discovery, Xiaoyu is, instead of being 1 point ahead of the second place, he is 25 points ahead of Kiru, who's second place. So Xiaoyu's at 2040, Kiru at 2015, and it's pretty wild that he managed to get up there, considering each win is giving him, 1, 2, 3, 4 ELO, and a loss is like minus 20.
Yeah, at that point, you basically have to have like a 40-game win streak or something ridiculous. Maybe not 40 game. If it's a 25-point difference, then it could be no greater than 25 games, starting at 2015.
That's true. But, on his profile, he has a 14-game win streak, so
Hmm. So probably about 2 elo per game,
Hmm.
maybe
But
3 or
yeah,
so.
congrats to Xiaoyu. It's great to have him around in the community. Great to see him streaming and putting out content on his YouTube and having another, top caliber player to create new decks and test the rest of us.
Yeah, it's great to have him around.
That about does it for our news, and well, we took some detours and did some history, but that covers kind of what's been happening in the news and community side of things. So now let's jump to the metagame segment and open up this patch here, patch 79, Hangry Hydra, and let's go over these juicy patch notes. I know that's what people want to hear. They want to hear what we think of the meta, go over the changes, and this was a pretty interesting patch. So, you ready to give this a look?
Oh yeah.
So, 8 modified cards and 9 prism shifts. Starting with the modified cards, we have Brimstone, who lost Wither. 2 cost, 3/2, adds a burn to a crisp to your hand on death. Used to have Wither, no longer has Wither. What are your thoughts on this?
So honestly, this is more of a nerf for Fox than anybody else. Fox really got a lot out of this card having Wither, because whenever you could rip it off of Run Wild, which would automatically ready it, it became this very powerful 3-cost deal 4 Wither tool to any viable target. So you could use it to run it into like a Sky Phoenix, and then if you wanted to burn to crisp it, you'd have that on hand. Or if you wanted to run it into like a Deepest was like the big target for it, something like Desire, a Comment, basically anything big and with guard, which Fox tends to do poorly against. Brimstone having Wither was a nice way for it to answer. It also just made it more dangerous for your opponent to trade into it with units because it would remove value from the units, forcing them to banner into it, but then you got like that burn damage, which was kind of what Brimstone was all about. Honestly,
I think
though,
it's
this is kind of secretly a buff for Horik because it means less people are going to be running Brimstone, so he gets his death effects a bit more often.
it's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that, but it might lead to people running less dusting. Although I think it's a pretty small nerf, but still, it still matters. It's still significant. But I think people are still going to be running it quite a bit. It's such a strong card. I've been kind of complaining about it internally for a while that it just gets so much value, and like you can trade into it and kill it, but then you don't want to play like a death effect you have. And as someone who plays a lot of Zoe, it's pretty annoying.
The issue is that Burn to Crisp is just such a good card. I was
Yeah.
playing one person cafe recently, and I was kind of messing around with like different Horik builds and stuff, and he was also like working on Horik builds and stuff. And we had this one game where I just happened to get Brimstone really early, and I took Phoenix Plume and Temple Watch and Evermore in the opening hand with Brimstone. So I basically just dropped Brimstone. He killed it. Burn to Chris, Phoenix Plume, burn to Chris, Brimstone. It dies, burn to Chris, Temple Watch, burn to Chris. Like that was a dirty game. I did not play fair at all.
Yeah, that's the thing I hate is that you can recur it so many times and it's just so much value, and you
Yeah.
burn to a crisp everything your opponent plays.
Little
Yes, especially in
little
Horic
fun. Yeah.
with Phoenix Plume, like you said, Temple Watch, and then even Grave Roll at the end.
Oh, Grave Royal gets so much value out of this. One little sneaky Horic trick. If you don't want to go for Titanic loops with Horic, you probably want to do Forest Heart loops, which means you probably want Avatar of Light, which means off of your Grave Royal, you can get Forest Heart back into your hand, along with a Burn to Crisp, which you can then play Forest Heart, unfallow, get Avatar of Light, play Avatar of Light, Trinity Link any enemy unit, and then Burn to Crisp it to immediately dust it.
Wow, that's true. Yeah, that's a nice combo.
It's expensive, but at that point in the game, mana is kind of yeah. But it's just so reliable for what you're cleaning. The fact it heals you, it gives you shield, and you've also set up a board.
Yeah. So overall, Brimstone, amazing card, still very strong, still going to be played. can draw it off Fireside, etc. But let's take a look at the next change, which is to Psyche, the underplayed black sheep of Strength 2 drops. A 3/5. It's recently got buffed from having 4 health to 5 health, so it's a 2-cost 3/5 with guard and lifesteal. So just a crazily overstated unit, but on summon, the enemy draws a card to make up for it. So it's going -1 right away. And it has the attachment Mimesis, I believe, 3-cost, dust your hand, draw. It draws a card for each card in the enemy hand, is that right?
Yep.
It's not like draw a card for each spell in the enemy hand. It doesn't show us at the patch notes here, but...
So the way it used to be was that it would draw a spell from your deck for every card in your opponent's hand, but that was recently... you could call it a buff, you could call it a simplification. I would call it a buff, where it was changed to it would just draw a card.
Yeah, that's much better. No one wants a handful of spells.
Yeah.
But what do you think of this Psyche change?
I think you really summed it up whenever you kind of referred to it as the black sheep. Generally speaking, I think that strength-based aggro builds really want to be in either Fox, or I've seen decently good arguments for Mira. I don't think Horik really has the aggression tools available to run a pure aggro list, and I think Titus is kind of playing suboptimally if he ever tries to go into like raw aggro. I think at best you'd want to put him into like a mid-range or a control build, but that's all kind of beside the point. So looking at like what Psyche actually does, for Fox, it's kind of competing with other things, because if you run Psyche, you probably really don't want Huntaro there, because Huntaro would just rip it out of your deck. You don't get the attachment. And Run Wild requires you to be holding a fire card to get the advantage of, which means you have to like play Run Wild and then play the fire card and then play Mimesis if you want to get the value off of it. But if you're not looking at doing that, if you're just looking at playing this very low curve aggro build that's just trying to blow through cards fast, I think Psyche can be really good. Especially just the fact that it comes with guard and lifesteal all on this very cheap package fulfills a very important thing for aggro, which is that it refills health, which is a resource that aggro burns through like crazy in this game.
Especially more recently, that's been added to the agility prism.
Yeah, recoil prism.
But yeah, I think one thing that needs to be said about this is it has an insanely high ceiling. Like the best possible case is like you're out of gas, you have an empty hand, you drop this thing, you dust like either 0, 1, 2 cards, whatever you have left, and just draw an entirely full hand. You can get like some
9.
of the most value in the game of any spell with this. It's like Blitz, but 10 times better in the right scenario, which I've never had that happen. I don't really run this card, but I know Spungo had kind of a Horik aggro or something where he would run this. It's really good with buffs since it has lifesteal and already high stats, so if you throw an Aegis on it or a Flame Sword or whatever, it's pretty good.
I do not like the idea of somebody playing Aegis on Psyche. That is a 7/9 guard shield lifesteal.
Yeah.
That's also blinding everything.
Yeah.
And then it probably just dies to like Mortal Blow or Wed Dead or something. You know how it goes.
This can this be brought in by teleport? Teleport doesn't overwrite with the barrier, does it?
Teleport does not. That's actually a really smart way to get into it. You know, I could see an argument for Psyche as kind of like a strength version of Prismata, where you just hold onto it until your deck is empty, and then you just like vomit your hand, and then it becomes like, yeah, sure, I took 9 damage, but also I'm holding lethal now, and you kind of just do that.
Yeah, out of deck a whole bunch of cards like, catch or whatever.
Yeah, strength out of decks can be pretty dang good, because you're looking at like Tiamat, Titanic, Moltenus, El Monstro, Gift of Swords,
Wrath.
Wrath. Root Hog, Weighted Dice, band together.
Yeah,
and Blaze of Glory.
Into a lot of good
don't
stuff.
Don't forget Blaze of Glory.
But there's not too many synergies with this card. Like there's doubling cube, but it's not good. No one runs that. You don't really need to tutor this early. Like you're saying, it's probably going to be a later gameplay where you can dump your hand. I guess it works well with Pandora's Brainstorm, the cost reduction that agility has. I don't think you wouldn't go so far as to like build the tightest deck where you cost reduce your hand so you can play everything. This more fits in an aggro thing where you're just playing low cost cards and dumping your hand every turn.
Yeah. Honestly, if you ran Pandora, you could run this with like Run Wild or Huntaro then, because what you would do would be use Pandora to cost reduce Psyche, so that way you don't hit it with Run Wild or Huntaro, which would that'd be pretty big brain. I might have to try that.
Sounds interesting. Maybe something to try out. Let's go on to the next change. So next up we have Skeeter, who had a very small change, which was that a Zomboid he adds to the enemy deck upon his death no longer has Hex. So 1 cost 2/2 with Wither, death adds Zomboid to the enemy deck, but before the Zomboid had Hex, so it would just die at the end of the turn. Now it doesn't. Very small difference, but it's going to let that body stick and possibly be useful later rather than just dying and doing 1 damage.
Yeah. This is simultaneously a nothing change and also a huge change. Because on one hand, it's like your opponent, oh wow, I draw a Zomboid. And now it's, oh wow, I draw a Zomboid. It's like, clap clap, you really hit the nail on the head there. On the other time, now you have a Zomboid, which is just a 0 cost unit. You can drop down at any time you want to apply board pressure. So if like I'm holding, say, Aegis of Light.
Yeah, or Weighted Die or something.
Yeah, and I just want to play this with some other units, and then just... Usually, the way that I would run this would be as kind of like a banner tax, where it's like, okay, I've got this Zomboid down, and I also have Burning Blade, which has 2 health, and I also have Cube Junior, which has 2 health, and you can't banner through all of these units at the same time. Usually what makes them vulnerable is that they just die to a punch, but your opponent only gets 1 of those per turn. So you could drop like all of those, force your opponent to pick 1, and then whatever lives, then you pop like your buff spell or whatever you want on it.
Yep, it's going to make a difference sometimes, but I think it's a good change. This card wasn't weak. I think it's probably still really strong and underrated. I was thinking about it the other day, like just adding a dead card to your opponent's deck is quite strong. It's like a vial that doesn't let you draw.
Yeah, it's like the weaker, more fair strength version of Gato.
Yeah, it messes with Ether Whale or like anything that pulls the lowest cost unit from your deck.
Casket is the big thing that it really disrupts. And Casket is so... I see Casket everywhere, and honestly, sometimes Skeeter is worth running just to ruin your opponent's Casket.
Yeah, for sure. Alright, we should keep rolling here. Next is Scroll Keeper. Not very played. Been out of the meta for a while. It's been receiving quite a few changes over the past few patches. So before it would just give 1 unit in your hand -1 cost and then mulligan your hand, and now it gives the right and leftmost cards in your hand -1 cost. Oh, okay, so now it discounts spells as well as units. It doesn't care what they are, just whatever cards are in left and right. And it gains stealth and lost 1 power. Just a little shift there, maybe lets it live longer. Having a card sling attached is really good. That's a great attachment to have on a wisdom unit. But this is basically goes in mulligan decks, so it synergizes with Guru. Guru is the card that when you draw a card, give it -1 cost. So in decks like those, you just want to mulligan your hand as often as possible to keep reducing the cost. And this helps you do that. It's just a mulligan stapled onto a body, as well as a bit of cost reduction to help out. And I think one deck this really shines in and you want to run in is like a Minstrel hand buff deck, which is something we haven't seen for a while, and is also something I know you're not particularly a fan of or a player of.
Nah, I've got my beef with the Minstrel decks for a few reasons.
It's something we haven't seen for a while. There was the Swap Go Banjo Frogs deck, which was very old. but I haven't really
Yeah,
seen a hand buff deck since then.
yeah. Honestly, so I agree with you that Scroll Keeper actually looks like a really good card now. I entirely disagree on where it belongs. I think this thing belongs in Iris Aggro, and I think this card can be a big player in Iris Aggro. If you look at
Mm.
it holistically, it's kind of like a 1 mana 3/3 with stealth. Now, it comes with some strings attached. You have to mulligan your hand. You might have to wait a while to get that cost back. But also, a 3/3 with stealth is a good stat line. More importantly, though, I think you run this in a Iris deck that has, like, I don't know, Turn the Tide and Blitz and Pandora, and you get all of these cards that kind of like they want you to empty out your hand. And there's one other wisdom change coming up that I think really helps sell this. But then you also run a bunch of wisdoms like high value but like very tempo effective cards like Rosewater or Orchid. And then you can kind of just chain these things together where it's like, okay, I play Orchid into Rosewater like turn one, and the next turn I can go like Run Wild into Trailblazer, and then it's just huge. And then once I've burned down on that, I'll play like my Fire Rune, I'll play my Scorch, then I can drop Pandora, I can draw some stuff, I can like Fire Rune later if I haven't used it yet, and get like Blitz off of the quest. I can use that to reload. Scroll Keeper here, it kind of just works as another reload option, but I think it gets us to a critical mass where that becomes suddenly a very effective strategy because it has that
Hmm.
card sling attached, and you can use that to dump bad cards.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. It would definitely be strong in an Iris aggro deck. But good to see his card getting buffed. Hopefully, we'll see some people play with it.
Yeah, I
Next
think
is
it's
Fire.
really cool now.
Mm-hmm. Next is Fire Noble, another Wisdom unit. It's getting +1 power, so now it's a 3-cost 3/3 with Guardian Lifesteal, with the effect Summon, do 1 damage to enemies. This got changed a while ago. It used to really suck. I don't even remember what it did, but now it's kind of an AoE that breaks stealth and heals you. A guard is always nice. 3-cost 3/3 is a good stat line, so it's getting better. Another, as it says, AoE defensive tool to kind of stop aggro early on.
Yeah, I look at everything through an aggro lens. I think this is a great aggro card. It's got that life steal, so it's going to be healing you. 3 mana 3/3 is a good enough stat line for aggro to run. Having guard is actually pretty helpful for aggro cards specifically because it means that you don't have like it. I call it backstab immunity. It means the card doesn't die to backstab, which when dealing with 1 mana do 3 damage, that's really helpful for a 3 mana 3/3. But also having just that summon effect that immediately is generating tempo on this strong body that is also going to lifesteal you, it kind of just checks a lot of the boxes on what aggro decks tend to be missing.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's also just burn damage.
It's also
Like
a
it's
fire
one.
card, so it goes well with fire package and agility,
Yeah.
or like a volcanic blast in Titus.
Yeah, that is a good point. You kind of get to stack that AoE with like Firesight into like Noble or Volcanic Blast or also Burninate. You just get to
Yeah.
sit there and laugh.
Chugging along here, we have Uppercut next, which has no longer gives flames to the target unit it returns to hand. So Uppercut is 4-cost, return target unit to hand with banner, so you can bounce something from the field back into a player's hand. You pretty much always use it on your opponent's units to clear a path to face because you're running it in aggro. I don't know of anyone who uses this card to return their own units to hand. If you were going to do that, Take Flight is kind of a better option. But what do you think about the since it doesn't give flames, it doesn't overwrite the attachment anymore. So that's really the key here. So what do you think of that?
Kind of crying for Fox. I understand that the change was probably necessary because Uppercut fulfilled a niche in Agi, which was basically just hard removal. Because, like, there was a very long time I would compare this card to Mortal Blow, and I'm like, what is this card doing? Like, why would I play this card? And then after being basically yelled at by somebody, like, for 20 hours straight just to try it, I eventually looked at it and I realized that the way Uppercut with the Flames worked was really, really safe is probably the best word for it. You could bounce a low cost enemy unit to their hand, which would then just die to the 2 points of flames damage, and you could use the banner to kill something else. Because it was able to do that, it made Uppercut a very safe option for an aggro deck to run when they wanted to answer large targets like Amaruaf or Dracomantium. Because, of course, when you run Mortal Blow, if you run into aggro, you're kind of just crying a little because it's 4 mana, do something a 1 mana spell does. But with Uppercut, you could kind of hedge your bets a little on both sides. Now that it no longer attaches flames, it is just not safe at all. It's just a very bounce card. And I feel like I Retort fills this gap a lot better because now like you get that utility of like silencing everything. I've heard arguments for Imposter. I don't think they're really solid, but I feel like it's worth mentioning. But also just
Yeah.
other options like Sunder and Strength kind of just do the role better.
Yeah, it's definitely a card you want to compare to other cards that fill the role. I like the comparison with Mortal Blow. It's very interesting because at first glance it just seems like why would you want to put something back in their hand when you can just kill it and then it's done. But there's a lot to consider because, I mean, first of all, the banner is like quite a big deal to be able to control board a bit better. The other big thing is units with death effects. They will trigger with Mortal Blow, and with this they won't. And the other thing is that your opponent could still play the unit you put back, but it's also like gives them an opportunity to sink their mana into it again. Or, like you can uppercut a big guard, hit face, and then they play it again, and then you have like another solution like Imposter or Chains just to get rid of it and kind of maybe bait them into thinking they're safe when you have lethal.
Yeah.
But what you said about it being less good to run against aggro is definitely true, I think, because your opponent never wanted to like let's say you bounce a like something cheap like a beetle, a 4-cost 3/3, you overwrite the fate, and they might play it again, but they're really not gonna want to pay an extra 2 mana to get rid of the flames, so it was probably gonna sit on there. But now with that gone, it's gonna be a little less strong, and options like Imposter or Retort or even Blow Away might be better.
Yeah. Blow Away in Intellect is just a 3 mana spell that not only bounces the unit, but also mulligans it, so the odds that they get it back are rather low. You kind of delay it for longer. But I think really just the thing that was making Uppercut good was that safety it had. And I think now it's kind of just going to bring down the power of aggro decks overall.
Yeah, it's definitely a nerf that's going to matter. It's not going to be insignificant.
Yeah. If anything, it makes a more convincing argument for running Maelstrom. Just bounce their entire board back to their deck. But some people aren't too warm to playing that card yet.
Yeah, that is a wacky card. It's going to have its time in the spotlight eventually, I think, but we haven't seen it yet.
One of these days.
Moving along, we've got Waking Dream being changed to Dreamgate, which I love the art for this new card. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Suppose we should mention
like an art update. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the reason.
Yeah, the reason it was changed is that it was kind of like a bit of cultural appropriation before it was a dream catcher, and I mean, that's cool, but it's always good not to kind of appropriate and put other cultures in your video game. There was no reason it needed to be like that, so Dreamgate will serve as a good name and a good alternative, I think.
Yeah, I feel like the new direction of the card kind of helps communicate the lore of the game a bit better. I mean, obviously we don't really know what like scene it's showing off, but taking the opportunity to like kind of explore more of the game's space, I think is certainly a good thing. And also like the art just looks sick.
Yeah, it's really cool. We're gonna keep going though. We don't want to take too much time. Beloved getting changed. From give a target +1 health for each character to give a target +1 health for each character on the battlefield. So just a wording change. I guess it's more clear. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's not really any characters that aren't on the battlefield, but I guess just saying character is kind of vague a bit.
yeah, it's supposed to make it more clear. I don't really know what additional information is being communicated because I think it's kind of implicitly understood that when cards just say a thing, they just refer to the board. But I mean,
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt anything. So I
I
mean, sure, why
guess
not?
someone could think that the character is in the hand count, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Should we take
Now
a look
we've
at these
got the
prism?
exciting stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
we've got
prism
our
shifts.
prism shifts.
So starting off, we have Mawworm going from agility to heart, which I gotta say makes a lot of sense.
You don't say.
It was so weird in agility.
Yeah. Honestly, this change was good, but I don't like it because it really hurts a deck I had.
It was like a fox deck.
Yeah, it was a Fox build. It might be coming up in a. I suppose now is as good a time to plug this as any. For those of you who've been keeping up with my articles, part 2 of the Firefox guide is in production right now. One of the decks I'll be discussing is the Tridra deck, but for a bit of a preview here, the Tridra build used to run Mawworm with Mother Mander, obviously Tridra, and also like Grimoire Wall of Dead. So it'd be like
Mm,
the Heirloom Tridra play, like on curve, and then I would drop Mother Mander. And then if they AoE through both of those, then I would go into Grimlord, I would have a Nether full board, and then after they do that, then I would just heal for like 24 health, and it was stupid.
Yeah, generate a lot of tokens, get a lot of health. Makes sense.
Yeah. But it's a good card to have in Heart. Using your grave as a resource is always important. And also, this is now in house with Undragon.
Yeah, and it also now has, I mean, not to spoil the patch, I'm sure people know, but now that Edgelord and Wall of Dead are in the same prism, you'll be able to generate a lot of zomboids and dust them all for +1 health, so.
Yeah. Also, Bone Mask. Although that might eat
hmm
your units, but if you play it right, it won't.
hmm Moving on, we have a pretty big one, which is Mighty Steed moving from heart to agility, and now also gives your hero banner as well as armor. And since it has banner itself, it's going to be 2 banners in one. It even has treasure chest attached, which is another banner. So for 9 mana, you can get +3 attack to your hero, which is pretty useful.
Yeah. This thing might single-handedly legitimize like some Fox strategies, like fire and metal packages, and also like just general like mid-range beatdown strategies that kind of use Mighty Steed as the top end. Because that thing
hmm
is sticky. It provides tempo. It provides value. And in like the aggro mirror, your opponent can't really ignore it because you'll just negate so much damage with it.
Yeah,
It is good.
yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this. It's always a card I've liked, but it's never been super strong. But now that it gives banner as well, it's gonna be better.
Yeah. Watch out for Sunder hitting your face, though. It won't remove the armor because Mighty Steed is a continuous effect, but you will
hmm
take, what is it, 5 points of damage, 4 points of
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah, it removes armor after, so I guess it would be 4 points of damage. That is a
Yeah.
pretty nasty, nasty burn there.
Yeah. 2 mana.
So next we have Sabletooth going from agility to strength, and I know you're pretty excited about this one.
Oh, hell yeah. For starters, Zoe doesn't get to run Sabletooth anymore, which is just like get owned. But also, Horik now basically gets the old version of Casket back. Casket used to be a 3 mana 3/3 unit, which was absolutely busted because you could play it turn 1 and then just get like Crystal or Violet or Crypto consistently. Sabletooth isn't activating those death effects, but something that's very important is that it's an Earth element card, which means that we can run it with Earth Golem and Opal Golem and Titanic and perhaps Rumbo or perhaps Old Fogey, which means that Ether Mask is now back on the menu as a draw option, and Horik is just got a big consistency buff.
It's a really nice draw off Ether Mask.
Yeah. I mean, Fox still has it, so Fox doesn't really care. But I'm very happy for this. Horic combo of the
Yeah.
day: Grave Royal with Sabletooth to make an Elderwood that you can then sack with Undragon's Pact to play Titanic.
Hmm.
Because I'm always looking for ways to cheat out Titanic.
Yeah. Well, a 3 cost 3/3 with guard that summons an Elderwood is a pretty solid unit.
Mm-hmm.
Next change we have is Olympia, which went from strength to heart. This card I don't really run. I know it's decent. It's been getting some discussion in the Discord lately. The thing is, what people have been saying is it's basically a 6 cost Gift of Kai, because 3 cost 3/3 guard lifesteal is decent, but it's nothing to write home about.
Yeah. I feel like if it plays in anything, it's probably going to be in that Zayu deck I mentioned earlier, the Zoe deck that like really floods board a ton. Because it also has
Hmm.
access to Grimlord now, so it can drop 2 Walls of Dead. Or
Yeah.
Wall. Would it be Walls of Dead or Wall of Deads? I feel like Wall
Uh,
of Deads would be like the appropriate version, but that just feels wrong.
it is indeed correct to say wall of deads.
I don't like that.
It is weird when you say it. But yeah,
Yeah.
now you can have 2 Gift of Kais in your deck, and although it's not been considered a strong card, like you're saying, with now this consistent access to Wall of Dead and being able to just spawn a ton of tokens, it's pretty scary to have like a board full of 1/3 zombies with banner, and in Zoe you can be running Montage or Mountain Lion as well, so things get pretty spooky pretty quickly.
Yeah, do take note though that if you try to stack Gift of Kais with each other, you can only give a unit banner once, so you won't get to double your banners or anything. That's not how this works.
That is true. Do not cast Gift of Kai twice on the same board unless you really need the help.
Yes, today I will Gift of Kai, manage memory, Gift of Kai.
If you're really trying to play around It's a Trap or, whatever.
Yeah.
But we should keep moving along here. Be interesting to see how Olympia develops if it gets played. Next, we have a pretty big one, which is Griff Scout going from hard to strength. And this card has been a bit under the radar for a while, and I think being in strength is really going to be able to shine now.
Yeah, this is a card I'm quite excited for because first off, being in strength really helps buff the card, and I do mean that like it gets better by being in strength. This card kind of falls into the category of either strength's 3 cost units or 4 cost units, like Mushka, Squiddy, or Agility Sworn Oni, that you want to play very early to set up kind of like traps for your opponent. What's really neat is that you can either drop it turn 1, and then you have access to, like, I don't know, Bolster Stonefist to buff it up, or you can drop it turn 2, immediately bolster it to make it a 4 mana 3/3 with Guard, which also now has backstab immunity, which can be very hard for people to deal with.
Hmm. Yeah, and then the glory effect, it starts snowballing, summoning armored guards.
Yeah. It should also be noticed that in decks like Metal Mira or Metal Fox builds that utilize Glorious Mane, because this unit has armor, it is going to disproportionately benefit from buff effects.
Yes. If you draw it after playing, it'll be a 3/3. If you play Glorious Mane on the unit at 4/4, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it gets big. And also bolster is just a good spell. It's good for like floating your mana later in the game. And also
Yeah.
it can be a decently cheap way to set up guards.
It has a lot of utility and it can be quite scary. And especially
Yeah.
in Discovery, this card is very strong.
Oh yeah, strength just gets really. I was talking about this with Kiru earlier today about how strength just gets really terrifying in Discovery because you can actually get away with the turn 1 Mishka opening or the turn 1 Squiddy opening, and because
Hmm.
the staple removal that's like 1 mana deal 3, 2 mana deal 3, or Wisdom having access to Whisk Away and Incinerate every game just doesn't happen as much. You get to really
Yeah.
snowball.
Yep. So Hopefully that doesn't happen to you, dear listener. Hopefully you don't find a Griff Scout in your Discovery game.
Unless you're playing Strength, in which case, draw that Griff Scout.
Yes. May you draw Drift Scout and not have your opponent draw it. Next change is Stone Fist, going from Heart to Strength, and this is a big one. This card recently, well not recently, but a while ago it got changed from exhausting a unit to no longer exhausting it, which was a pretty big change.
Yeah. Okay, so starting with the positives, I'm trying my best here. It is no longer in Heart, so that means that your opponent can't go, I don't know, Avatar of Light into Stone Fist turn 1 for a 2/6 armor. They can't go Right or Light Knight into Stone Fist for like a 2/5 Banner Guard armor shield. Or I'm sorry, no guard. Zoe no longer has access to Right Knight Stone Fist for a 5/4 Fate on turn 1 that also has Stealth. City Unophobia no longer has access to this card, so they can't rip it off of Ghost Duster after like a Germinate or whatever to just blow through you.
Oh,
Downside,
yeah.
Fox has access to this card, which means he gets to play like, Halcyon Stonefist. Cookbook can find Stonefist. The aforementioned Griff Scout, you can play that on turn 1, and on turn 2 go bolster Stonefist. This thing is absolutely busted, and I guarantee it will get nerfed, because adding 3 health for 1 mana is just a hilariously good rate.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll get changed to +1/+2 or just 3 health and no attack, but drawing it off Cookbook and Fox is definitely very strong.
Yeah, because then, you negate the whole disadvantage that it's a -1. Probably should be, either a 1/2, a 2/1, or a 0/2. Adding 3 health. 3 is the breakpoint for removal for this game, and is also the breakpoint for the vast majority of units' attack power. So if you have a unit on board, you can just play Stonefist, trade it, and then Stonefist works as a 1-cost deal 3 most of the time, and you got to buff a unit. It's
but
just
I mean,
good.
at 0/2 or 1/2, it's going to be kind of too weak to justify running as a slot in a deck.
I don't think so.
Okay.
You just have to play it. Sworn Oni Stonefist would still be a 4/5 with armor. You can still Cookbook for it, and now you have a 2-cost Clawbear that also send a card from your deck.
Yeah.
You still get a 2/5 Halcyon, or you still get a 5/3 Right Knight. Well, that one's not quite as good because it doesn't get up to 4, but the card
with
the card
Halcyon,
would still
it would
be
still
good.
be strong. That's true.
Yeah, it just wouldn't be so universally good.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens, but for now it's very strong. Moving along here, we have Songwriter next, moving from Heart to Agility, so kind of shifting the banner stuff to Agility more.
Yeah. This one was the one where I told Coulter that he could take a vacation from the Bacon Basement. This thing is amazing. I love it, especially for Heatwave Fox, because it just gives us another sticky target to set up Glorious Mane, or Fire Sword, or Champ, or Fire Rune, or it gives us a banner that we can do with On the Hunt, again Fire Rune, or set up Blade Master. It just works. It does everything we want. It's just a good card, and also the bird is kind of cool looking. It's he's got his little helmet and everything. I like the bird.
It is very cool. It's reminiscent of a Chocobo Rider from Final Fantasy or something.
Oh my gosh, it is, isn't it?
But yeah, the double banner is good. Leaving a token behind is good, like you say, for all those spells, whatever. Flame Sword, Aegis. I think people are going to start running Band Together.
Not Aegis. Oh my gosh, yeah, Aegis definitely plays with this.
Yeah. The most terrifying songbird you've ever seen.
The 5/5 guard banner songbird.
Yeah.
That's like a war songbird.
But this card is still going to be running Zoe, where it was run a lot before. I believe it's in Xiaoyu's deck. But now it's open to, Fox and Iris. Could definitely help with the Iris banner OTK deck, actually. And well, Mai, but who plays Mai nowadays?
Alpha while crying.
Hope she makes a comeback soon. But next we have Bone Mask going from strength to heart. This card
Yeah.
was recently buffed to be a bit too strong and then brought back down in power level. So it dusts your top 2 dead cards to summon a Zomboid, attach a spell to your hero with +1 cost. Basically just lets you generate a bunch of zombies by dusting units in your grave.
Yeah.
Well, it dusts cards actually. They don't even need to be units. They can be spells too.
Yeah, that's the big perk of it, is that you can kind of dust your spells with it. Honestly, I might have like a big brain idea with this in Horic, where I can basically use it to like cheat Titanic loops. Because if I play just like one non-death effect unit, I can dust it with my own Bone Mask, so that way I still get to have Titanic loops. But that might be a bit janky. The big thing this card was doing before was people were using the attach it to your hero to combo it with Anointing Flame to make Anointing Flame 2 cost instead of 4, basically. And also being able to float your mana and generate these Zomboids was a very effective strategy for dealing with Wisdom decks, because now they have to kill it, but they don't play units, so they have to spend removal for it, but they don't want to because you played like 2 mana. But if they do kill it, then like, okay, your other units are safe, but if they don't kill it, okay, Flame Sword, and you just run through them. It was a good
Yeah,
card.
that's
I'm
true.
interested to see how it'll play in Heart. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't think it's really a Zoe card. I think it's more of a Horic or Axel kind of thing even.
I could see it in Axel. I could see it in Axel where he runs like both the Walls of Dead, and then he just plays like Prismata and Grave Royal just for like that out of deck burn damage style.
Works with oh, works with Undragon if you need to spawn a token to get something. I guess
Yeah,
Undragon summons his own Zomboids though, so
yeah, he brings his own party.
I guess it's really just the Horic with like Colossoid and the 2 Wall of Deads to spam Zomboids and Grave Royal.
Yeah.
Speaking of Grimlord, it's also been moved to Heart. I guess their idea is to consolidate each kind of token unit into whatever prism, so Zomboids are going to be a hard thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Horic could already run both Wall of Deads, but now any hard prism can, even just Mono Hard Boron. But I'm pretty annoyed with Wall of Dead. I'm kind of fed up with it.
Same. I am very tired of Wall of Dead. I've been running Maelstrom in my Heatwave list exclusively for just saying screw you to people who are playing like Grimlord and Wall of Dead, just because it's so good. I've got this city deck I put together right after the patch dropped, and I haven't quite got it working yet, but the premise I feel is so good that somebody's going to figure it out. It's basically we run Wall of Dead and Grimlord and Managed Memory, and then also Necrosis, Hive, Shell Officer, Orion, Gemini, Undergrowth, and Blood Hunter with like just some basic utility on the bottom. And we curve out all of these token generators, and it's like, okay, you have to play an AoE every turn, or I am going to do like 15 damage with Blood Hunter.
Yeah,
Someone is going to make that work, and it's going to be god awful when they do.
sounds pretty strong. I wouldn't want to play against that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to play against somebody else playing it. My version of it has been pretty piss poor in terms of results.
Hmm. Well, have to keep tuning, and I'm sure you can make something work out of it.
Yeah, that's the goal, if I get the time.
Right. Well, that brings us to the end of the balance changes, and pretty much brings us to the end of the podcast. We have one more little thing we're gonna do, which is we're gonna each bring forth a card we'd like to see changed, uh, just as a final way to cap off the episode and maybe make some predictions for the next patch. So, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
You go first. I've been kind of leading us most of this.
Okay, so my card that I want to talk about and hopefully see changed is Bill.
Hmm. Why is
Now,
that?
Bill, It's because I really like hand buff and I like Bill. He was in one of my first decks, and he eventually got nerfed because he was OP, and then for like one patch got buffed to being like insanely overpowerful and took over the meta, and then got nerfed back to being horrible again. So it's just been hard to find a healthy medium with this card, and I'm hoping there's something we can do about that, because back in the day, for the longest time, it was a 3-cost 3/3 that gave your board +1/+1.
No, it
Other
wasn't
than
your
it.
board, it was your hand.
Oh yeah, that's true. Not your board. The board thing was added. So it was a 3-cost 3/3 that gave your hand, units in your hand, +1/+1. And then it got changed around, and now it is a 5-cost 3/3 that buffs your hand and units on your board for +1/+1. But it says give other ally units, so it's still a 5-cost 3/3. I mean, sure, you're getting like +1/+1 on however many other cards, so it should make up for it. But spending 5 mana to play 3/3 is just like a death sentence in this meta with how high tempo things have to be. I'm sure there's a way to set it up right. It's probably not as bad as I think it is if you can play it off like Jar of Souls, or I mean even Wartlock. It's a pretty good pull off of. But
I
I
haven't thought about Wartlock as a pool. That's really creative.
thank you. I just thought of that now, but I mean the thing is, it's going to be hard to be consistent, and like by definition you need to run lots of units for it to be effective to have them in your hand. So it's going to be hard to like set that up properly, I think, in the end.
Yeah. I think there certainly comes like a critical mass of units where Bill gets good. The issue is probably A, maintaining a board while holding Bill in your hand, because any buff spell you run is a card that is not a unit or removal, which means that you're basically playing down a card with trying to control board. This is actually one of the reasons that buff spells like Waneblade, Fire Sword, or Aegis tend to be really good, is because they can function as like draw or as removal in addition to being a buff. For Bill, I'm not really sure how we can change this card without making it really good or really bad, just because it's so swingy. Especially when you
Yeah,
consider that this guy can like be buffing armor things, that can get kind of terrifying.
that is true. That is true.
Maybe we could move it to strength, and then it can take advantage of synergies with like Crystal Cage, Glorious Mane. Mira brings a lot of armor. Fox brings a lot of armor for it to play off of. Maybe that would be the way to buff
Yeah,
it.
it could work in strength. Right now you can play it in Horic, but I think it's a hard card because it's you want to recur it. You want to like play it multiple times to buff up your guys a bunch, I think is the idea.
Yeah, it works well with things like Take Flight, but also Take Flight. It looks like Take Flight should be a good card, but there just aren't the results for it right now. I don't
Yeah, and
know.
if you do the math, like five cost Bill, 3 cost Take Flight, and then a 3 cost Bill, you pay 11 mana to like give +2/+2 to your board in your hand, and get like a 5/5 body, I guess.
Yeah,
But in the right niche situation, it could be good, but it's gonna the most effective way to play it is gonna be with stuff like Jar of Souls and Ancient's Rise, which Rise is also hard to make this work because by like a build deck generally wants to have a bunch of low cost units. Like it's just math that units with lower stats will get more value out of being +1/+1. And I remember running it in an aggro deck with like Crystal and Crypto and all this stuff. And when you play like three uh, 3 +1/+1 1 drops on turn 3, your opponent just cries. It's so strong, but that is no longer possible.
yeah, can confirm. I did cry several times whenever you would just go, okay, 2/4 Fox Familiar, 3/3 Crystal, and we'll just throw in a 2/2 Fun Guy for fun, because you think you're going to enjoy this game, you are not.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the day, I found a deck that had Bill as the only 3 cost unit, and then Chromecast, which could summon
Ah,
it,
the city
and
deck.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Cobalt would be a 1 cost to fetch Chromecast. So you
No,
essentially had three.
Cobalt was like a 0 cost unit at some point that you were doing that shit. Like, what if I just play this free unit to get a free draw, and then play a free spell to get this unit?
Yeah,
You just got
it
that
was
turn one, like every game. I hated it.
it was so consistent. There was 3 different ways to draw into Bill, and so just by math with the opening mulligan and the top decks, you were going to hit it early on, which is what you wanted because giving your hand +1/+1 on 8 mana is not going to do as much when your opponent has, Burn and 8, Doomsday, Touch the Sky waiting for you. But yeah, I don't know. Even if you just shaved off a mana, if it was a 4-cost 3/3 that gave +1/+1 to your hand and not the board, I don't know if the board is like critical to give tempo. I kind of like it better when it just buffs the hand, because the idea is you play it first and then play out all your other units. Or maybe just giving it a point of health, so it's a 3/4 that buffs hand and board.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I don't know. It could. I wanted to try a Horic Metal main deck, and I've tried a couple times, but it never works.
Yeah, you're probably missing like the mid-range units there. Let's see. You've got Violet, but Engine Blade isn't exactly good. You have Scythe, but like Boulder is kind of occupying that slot. 3-cost, we've got what exactly? Gladiator and Grit Scout are both good. Then you have Eclipse, Bill, Geode, Cavalry. Yeah, you'd probably rather just be playing Mira.
Yeah. Urban's Mirror Metal deck is going to be better than whatever Horic deck comes out, I think.
Yeah, because you're trading like int removal for heart removal, which is a trade that you want to make most of the time.
Well, you're saying int removal is a lot better, right?
Oh, and the vast majority of circumstances, and also the way it pairs with strength removal, I think is probably a bit better than the way it pairs than how strength removal pairs with heart removal. Strength brings a lot to heart. Heart kind of just brings low-level AoE to strength. But int can kind of do both of those things, because int has like Volcanic Potion, and it's a trap. But it also lets you run crap like Encapsulate and also Gato, which is just, you're just doing good things.
Or, Germinate, Defragment. Defragment and Shrink Ray don't see a lot of play, but I still think they're strong spells.
Oh yeah, they are great. The issue is that they kind of need like the right meta for them.
The Ether Whale meta.
Yeah, you need a meta where your opponent is like going to have Earth Golem really often to justify something like Shrink Ray.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about Bill. I think we've talked about him enough and the possibilities surrounding him. What card are you thinking of today?
Okay, so I could take this opportunity to rag on Wisdom Removal Spell number 217 and about how it's like too good or whatever, but I actually want to talk about a card whose art I want changed. So in the last patch, Hydrex had its art changed to this like mechanized kind of monstrosity where it's got like these like cyber eyes, and one of the heads is just like mechanical, which, by the way, not to nitpick, but if it's a Hydra, aren't the heads supposed to grow back when they are cut? I get what the vibe is here. I think the art is very cool for it. It doesn't make the most sense when you think about it, because like if it's a Hydra, then like the head grows back. It's like its whole thing. But that's actually not the one I want to focus on, because
Okay.
I would much rather. Well, the old art for Hydrex got moved over to Tridra, and I feel like this was a massive downgrade. If you look at the original art for Tridra, it was kind of just like this little foresty snaky dude who had like 3 heads. But if you just look at the heads, I honestly just died laughing several times, like whenever I'd look at the card, because it just looks like just these happy little danger noodles. One of them is kind of just like smiling, and he's like, yeah. And then the other one's like, ah, and he's just like screaming his head off. And then the other one in the background is like, I don't know who these people are or why I'm here, but all I know is that I must kill. And it was just good art. I just preferred that art. The Hydrex art that got moved over to Tridra, it's a bit hard to like kind of tell the scale of it. It looks like it's supposed to be this massive abomination. Like you can see like lakes and streams in the bottom. But also, if you just look at the card in general, you don't really get that vibe. It's undistinguished because it's kind of like lumpy. So you just have these three
Mm-hmm.
heads that kind of just attach onto this odd body that's kind of lacking
Yeah.
definition.
It has like a forest on its back that's supposed to show the scale of how big it is, but it doesn't quite come across, maybe.
Yeah, because we don't really have a good scale of how big the forest is. Like a card like Amaruaf has a very similar design concept to it because Amaruaf is supposed to be the elemental dragon for Earth, and it communicates this idea very well. We don't really have it like put up against a forest or anything, but from like the shading and the distance and perspective that we're given the card, and also the fact that like it's standing up on a pillar looking down, whereas with the new Tridra art, it's kind of like on this undistinguished plot of land looking up. It communicates a much greater sense of scale, and we also kind of naturally fill in the blank that dragon, therefore big. Whereas we don't really do that with Tridra.
Hmm. Yeah, the old Tridrard was very cool. I can see why they changed it. It was kind of goofy, but it had a lot of personality. And just as you were describing the three different faces, it reminded me of a certain creature from another game, which is Dodrio from Pokemon, the three-headed bird, which also has three different heads. And I remember the lore from when I was younger, which is that like each one has a different personality, and they kind of like fight with each other, and they have to work together to survive. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah. I like my cards that like kind of have like their own little funny look or personality to them. That's half the reason I just love Dracomanthium. It's because if you zoom in on Dracomanthium and you really just look at his face, he just has like the most smug expression. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to equip hero armor now. Your OTK combo means nothing to me." And he's just like
Hmm.
internally laughing. I love it. I like
It's
those
pretty
types of
funny
cards.
to have that kind of facial expression on this like massive, towering, threatening dragon, and he's just got like a smug grin on his face.
Yeah, it's like you're going to walk up to him and you're going to petition him, like, please save my village. And he's like, is your village located near the river of Updaw? And you're like, what's the river of Updaw? And it's like, not much. What is up with you, dog? Like, that's exactly how that interaction plays out with Dracomanthium.
You think he likes cheesy puns?
Most certainly.
Okay, that's canon now. But yeah,
I have declared it.
I'm looking at Hydrex more now that you said that, and I looked at it before and I was like, oh cool, that's a neat design, but I didn't really notice the mechanized element. And yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Although there could be an explanation. I'd be curious to see what the devs say. But if there's like two kind of normal looking heads and one metal, like Android technology one, so like if one of them gets cut off, does it regrow as just normal scales and flesh, or does it regrow as like? It wouldn't make sense for a head to regrow as like a mechanized one. Maybe if you cut the mechanized one, it doesn't look like it's built to regrow or to multiply, which is what a Hydra is supposed to do, as you pointed out.
Yeah, there could be like some in lore reason, like maybe a Hydrex is like one specific Hydra that's been like messed with by somebody to like make this abomination. But it's definitely it doesn't work like how you would think like the traditional Hydra of myth kind of works. Although then again, the Hydra that we have elsewhere, like Tridra, he doesn't really regenerate either. He kind of spawns like smaller guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess that's close enough.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to the end here, but there is a few other stealth art updates I wanted to highlight, which I looked over when I saw this art change, and you pointed out one of them in Discord, which was Grave Royal, had its art slightly changed. It's just a bit darker, kind of like more contrast. The background is more pink, I think,
Yeah.
which is fine. It's a small change. I don't know if it's really an improvement, but it did happen, so I wanted to point that out. And
The
another
real
card that got a
thing, there actually is
sorry.
something that changed with this card that you couldn't tell before. If you click on the card and you look very distinctly at the art, you know how it kind of has like the skull and it has all the souls? The skull is actually made up of all of the bodies. And more than that, you can
Yeah.
actually see like one shady guy inside of the mouth of it, which is all like very grotesque and morbid and all that.
Yeah, that's cool. Grave has always been a very cool card.
Very strong card.
Yeah. Nice big 10 mana hard removal. But I was going to say another card that got a similar treatment actually is Deadbeats. If you look at it, it's much more pink in the background, I think.
Really? Oh my, would you look at that? Yeah, it is. I did not even notice that one.
When I first saw it, I was like, did that change or not? Like, has it always been that way? And I'm just suddenly looking at it differently. The one where it's like hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure this is different.
Yeah, I'm 90% certain that card is different.
Mm-hmm.
There is one other card that got its art completely reworked, though. Mr.
What's
Whiskers.
That? Oh yeah, we should go over that.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, I don't mind this art, but I really like the old one. It was one of the coolest arts in the game, and this one is cool too. But it's a less like has less stature, and like it's not as big and bulky, which a 4-cost 2/7 guard it definitely says big and bulky to me. So this guy seems a bit more mischievous. Might be better for some like stealth glory effect guy, but I think it's probably here to stay.
Yeah. They won't sound mean, but like it looks very chubby. And for like what is essentially a type of fighting game, I'm not really too huge on like because like if they're going to fight, you would expect them to be like somewhat fit. Which I mean, like it's a magical cat, so like who gives any? But I don't really vibe with this design. That's kind of just me though. I preferred the old one.
I prefer the old one too.
Yeah.
If they're gonna go with the
beard.
like, if they're gonna go with the like kind of big fat cat thing, it could be done a bit differently, like some sort of king who is being what's the word? Suffering like gluttony, like he indulges too much, he eats too much.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would tell a story with it.
Greedy and rich, yeah. But this is just like a slightly overweight cat with like a big grin, holding some yarn.
Yeah.
Also, this isn't new, but how his name is Mr. Whiskers and he has Whisk Away attached is just great.
Yeah, I like it when cards like tell a story. I like it when they like help communicate parts of the lore. That's why I'm very attached to my idea of like Dracomantium, or what I was mentioning with like Hydrex earlier, how the card art doesn't really match the story that we know. Or if you look at something like Undragon's Pact, where like you can actually see like the sacrifice happening or whatever, Mr. Whiskers in this current state doesn't really tell much.
Mm-hmm. But I think we'll probably have the option of getting old art later. Marcelo has hinted at that a few times, how we'll be able to have legacy art in some capacity or another.
Yeah.
So all hope is not lost for the old Mr. Whiskers, but if nothing else, it makes for a really good new profile picture for Coulter. This cat's little grin.
Coulter looking through the strength cards to nerf.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I think that about does it for our first episode. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say on the topic of cards to be changed or artwork.
No, I'm pretty satisfied with everything. I mean, maybe
right.
Great Gusto, but yeah.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that one before. Well, we got up to pretty much an hour and a half here, so that's pretty good. If anything, a bit too long. If anyone's listened all the way through, thank you for listening. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe, spread the word. Let us know your feedback in the Discord. Hit us up. We definitely want to hear what you think about it. If you have any ideas for the podcast or how it could be utilized, we're definitely open to hearing that. But that's going to be it from us for the first episode of State of the Sky. So I hope you guys have enjoyed, and see you next time.
See y'all in Sky.